Chapter 1 of The Big Time by Fritz Leiber. This is a Librivox recording. All Librivox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit librivox.org. Recording by Karen Savage. The Big Time by Fritz Leiber. Chapter 1. When shall we three meet again, in thunder, lightning, or in rain? When the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won. Macbeth. Enter 3 hussars. My name is Greta Forzane. 29 and a party girl would describe me. I was born in Chicago, of Scandinavian parents, but now I operate chiefly outside space and time. Not in heaven or hell, if there are such places, but not in the cosmos or universe you know either. I'm not as romantically entrancing as the immortal film star who also bears my first name, but I have a rough and ready charm of my own. I need it, for my job is to nurse back to health and kid back to sanity soldiers badly roughed up in the biggest war going. This war is the Change War, a war of time travelers. In fact, our private name for being in this war is being on the big time. Our soldiers fight by going back to change the past, or even ahead to change the future, in ways to help our side win the final victory 1 billion or more years from now. A long killing business, believe me. You don't know about the Change War, but it's influencing your lives all the time, and maybe you've had hints of it without realizing. Have you ever worried about your memory because it doesn't seem to be bringing you exactly the same picture of the past from one day to the next? Have you ever been afraid that your personality was changing because of forces beyond your knowledge or control? Have you ever felt sure that sudden death was about to jump you from nowhere? Have you ever been scared of ghosts? Not the storybook kind, but the billions of beings who were once so real and strong it's hard to believe they'll just sleep harmlessly forever? Have you ever wondered about those things you may call devils or demons? Spirits able to range through all time and space, through the hot hearts of stars and the cold skeleton of space between the galaxies? Have you ever thought that the whole universe might be a crazy, mixed-up dream? If you have, you've had hints of the Change War. How I got recruited into the Change War, how it's conducted, what the two sides are, why you don't consciously know about it, what I really think about it, you'll learn in due course. The place outside the cosmos where I and my pals do our nursing job, I simply call the place. A lot of my nursing consists of amusing and humanizing soldiers fresh back from raids into time. In fact, my formal title is entertainer, and I've got my silly side, as you'll find out. My pals are 2 other gals and 3 guys from quite an assortment of times and places. We're a pretty good team, and with Sid bossing, we run a pretty good recuperation station, though we have our family troubles. But most of our troubles come slamming into the place with the beat-up soldiers, who've generally just been going through hell and want to raise some of their own. As a matter of fact, it was 3 newly arrived soldiers who started this thing I'm going to tell you about, this thing that showed me so much about myself and everything. When it started, I'd been on the big time for 1,000 sleeps and 2,000 nightmares, and working in the place for 500 1,000. This 2 nightmares routine every time you lay down your dizzy little head is rough, but you pretend to get used to it, because being on the big time is supposed to be worth it. The place is midway in size and atmosphere between a large nightclub, where the entertainers sleep in, and a small Zeppelin hangar decorated for a party, though a Zeppelin is one thing we haven't had yet. You go out of the place, but not often if you have any sense, and if you're an entertainer like me, into the cold light of a morning filled with anything from the earlier dinosaurs to the later spacemen, who looked strangely similar except for size. Solely on doctor's orders, I have been on cosmic leave 6 times since coming to work at the place, meaning I have had 6 brief vacations, if you care to call them that, for believe me, they are busman's holidays, considering what goes on in the place all the time. The last one I spent in Renaissance Rome, where I got a crush on Cesare Borgia, but I got over it. Vacations are for the birds anyway, because they have to be fitted by the spiders into serious operations of the Change War, and you can imagine how restful that makes them. See those soldiers changing the past? You stick along with them. Don't go too far up front, though, but don't wander off either. Relax and enjoy yourself. Now, the kind of recuperation soldiers get when they come to the place is a horse of a far brighter color, simply dazzling by comparison. Entertainment is our business, and we give them a bang-up time and send them staggering happily back into action, though once in a great while something may happen to throw a wee shadow on the party. I am dead in some ways, but don't let that bother you. I'm lively enough in others. If you met me in the cosmos, you would be more apt to yak with me or try to pick me up than to ask a cop to do the same or a father to douse me with holy water, unless you're one of those hard-boiled reformer types. But you're not likely to meet me in the cosmos because, bar Basin Street and the Prater, 15th century Italy and Augustan Rome, until they spoiled it, are my favorite, vacation spots. And as I have said, I stick as close to the place as I can. It is really the nicest place in the whole change world. Crisis. I even think of it capitalized. Anywho, when this thing started, I was twiddling my thumbs on the couch nearest the piano and thinking it was too late to do my fingernails, and whoever came in probably wouldn't notice them anyway. The place was jumpy like it always is on an approach, and the gray velvet of the void around us was curdled with the uneasy lights you see when you close your eyes in the dark. Sid was tuning the maintainers for the pickup, and the right shoulder of his gold-worked gray doublet was streaked where he'd been wiping his face on it with quick ducks of his head. Beauregard was leaning as close as he could over Sid's other shoulder, one white-trousered knee neatly indenting the rose plush of the control divan, and he wasn't missing a single flicker of Sid's old fingers on the dials. Beau's co-pilot besides piano player. Beau's face had that dead blank look it must have had when every double eagle he owned, and more he didn't, were riding on the next card to be turned in the gambling saloon on one of those wedding cake Mississippi steamboats. Doc was soused as usual, sitting at the bar with his top hat pushed back and his knitted shawl pulled around him, his wide eyes seeing whatever horrors a life in Nazi-occupied Tsarist Russia can add to being a drunk demon in the change world. Maud, who is the old girl, and Lily, the new girl, of course, were telling the big beads of their identical pearl necklaces. You might say that all us entertainers were a bit edgy. Being demons doesn't automatically make us brave. Then the red telltale on the major maintainer went out, and the door began to darken in the void facing Sid and Beau, and I felt change winds blowing hard, and my heart missed a couple of beats. And the next thing, 3 soldiers had stepped out of the cosmos and into the place, their first 3 steps hitting the floor hard as they changed times and weights. They were dressed as officers of hussars, as we'd been advised, and praise the bonny dew, I saw that the first of them was Erich, my own dear little commandant, the pride of the von Hohenwald and the terror of the snakes. Behind him was some hard-faced Roman or other, and beside Erich, and shouldering into him as they stamped forward, was a new boy, blonde, with a face like a Greek god who's just been touring a Christian hell. They were uniformed exactly alike in black, shakos, fur-edged pelisses, boots, and so forth, with white skull emblems on the shakos. The only difference between them was that Erich had a collar on his wrist, and the new boy had a black gauntleted glove on his left hand and was clenching the mate in it, his right hand being bare, like both of Erich's and the Romans. "You've made it, lads, hearts of gold," Sid boomed at them, and Beau twitched to smile and murmured something courtly, and Maud began to chant, "Shut the door," and the new girl copied her, and I joined in, because the change winds do blow like crazy when the door is open, even though it can't ever be shut tight enough to keep them from leaking through. "Shut it before it blows wrinkles in our faces," Maud called in her gammon voice to break the ice, looking like a skinny teenager in the tight knee-length frock she'd copied from the new girl. But the 3 soldiers weren't paying attention. The Roman, I remembered his name was Mark, was blundering forward stiffly, as if there was something wrong with his eyes, while Erich and the new boy were yelling at each other about a kid and Einstein and a summer palace and a bloody glove and the snakes having booby-trapped St. Petersburg. Erich had that taut, sadistic smile he gets when he wants to hit me. The new boy was in a tearing rage. "Why'd you pull us out so bloody fast? We fair chewed the Nevsky Prospect to pieces galloping away." "Didn't you feel their stun guns, Dummkopf, when they sprung the trap? Too soon, Gott sei Dank," Erich demanded. "I did," the new boy told him. "Not enough to numb a cat. Why didn't you show us action?" "Shut up. I'm your leader. I'll show you action enough." "You won't. You're a filthy Nazi coward." "Weibischer Engländer." "Bloody Hun." "Schlange." The blonde lad knew enough German to understand that last crack, He threw back his sable-edged pelisse to clear his sword arm, and he swung away from Eric, which bumped him into Beau. At the first sign of the quarrel, Beau had raised himself from the divan as quickly and silently as a— no, I won't use that word— and slithered over to them. "Sirs, you forget yourselves," he said sharply, off balance, supporting himself on the new boy's upraised arm. "This is Sidney Lessingham's place of entertainment and recuperation. There are ladies—" With a contemptuous snarl, the new boy shoved him off and snatched with his bare hand for his saber. Beau reeled against the divan. It caught him in the shins, and he fell toward the Maintainers. Sid whisked them out of the way as if they were a couple of beach radios, simply nothing in the place is nailed down, and had them back on the coffee table before Beau hit the floor. Meanwhile, Eric had his saber out and had parried the new boy's first wild slash and lunged in return, and I heard the scream of steel and the rutch of his boot on the diamond-studded pavement. Beau rolled over and came up, pulling from the ruffles of his shirt bosom a derringer I knew was some other weapon in disguise, a stun gun or even an atropos. Besides scaring me damp for Eric and everybody, that brought me up short. Us entertainers' nerves must be getting as naked as the soldiers', probably starting when the Spiders canceled all cosmic leaves when he sleeps back. Sid shot Beau his look of command, rapped out, "I'll handle this, you whoreson firebrand," and turned to the minor Maintainer. I noticed that the telltale on the Major was glowing a reassuring red again, and I found a moment to thank Mama Devi that the door was shut. Maud was jumping up and down, cheering I don't know which, nor did she, I bet, and the new girl was white, and I saw that the sabers were working more businesslike. Eric's flicked again, and came away from the blonde lad's cheek, spilling a couple of red drops. The blonde lad lunged fiercely, Eric jumped back, and the next moment they were both floating helplessly in the air, twisting like they had cramps. I realized quick enough that Sid had shut off gravity in the door and store sections of the place, leaving the rest of us firm on our feet in the refresher and surgery sectors. The place has sectional gravity to suit our extraterrestrial buddies. Those crazy ETs sometimes come whooping in for recuperation in very mixed batches. From his central position, Sid called out, kindly enough, but taking no nonsense, "All right, lads. You've had your fun. Now sheathe those swords." For a second or so, the two black hussars drifted and contorted. Eric laughed harshly and neatly obeyed. The commandant is used to freefall. The blonde lad had stopped writhing, hesitated while he glared upside down at Eric, and managed to get his saber into its scabbard, although he turned a slow somersault doing it. Then Sid switched on their gravity, slow enough so they wouldn't get sprained landing. Eric laughed, lightly this time, and stepped out briskly towards us. He stopped to clap the new boy firmly on the shoulder and look him in the face. "So now you get a good scar," he said. The other didn't pull away, but he didn't look up, and Eric came on. Sid was hurrying toward the new boy, and as he passed Eric, he wagged a finger at him and gaily said, "You rogue." Next thing, I was giving Eric my man your home hug, and he was kissing me and cracking my ribs and saying Liebchen, Doppchen, which was fine with me, because I do love him, and I'm a good lover and as much a doubleganger as he is. We had just pulled back from each other to get a breath, his blue eyes looked so sweet in his worn face, when there was a thud behind us. With the snapping of the tension, Doc had fallen off his bar stool, and his top hat was over his eyes. As we turned to chuckle at him, Maud squeaked, and we saw that the Roman had walked straight up against the void and was marching along there steadily without gaining a foot, like it does happen, his black uniform melting into that inside-your-head gray. Maud and Beau rushed over to fish him back, which can be tricky. The thin gambler was all courtly efficiency again. Sid supervised from a distance. "What's wrong with him?" I asked Eric. He shrugged. "Overdue for change shock. And he was nearest the stun guns. His horse almost threw him. Mein Gott, you should have seen St. Petersburg, Liebchen. The Nevsky Prospect, the canals flying by like reception carpets of blue sky, a cavalry troop in blue and gold that blundered across our escape, fine women in furs and ostrich plumes, a monk with a big tripod and his head under a hood. It gave me the horrors, seeing all those zombies flashing past and staring at me in that sick, unawakened way they have, and knowing that some of them, say the photographer, might be snakes." Our side in the Change War is the Spiders. The other side is the snakes, though all of us, spiders and snakes alike, are doublegangers and demons too, because we're cut out of our lifelines in the cosmos. Your lifeline is all of you from birth to death. We're doublegangers because we can operate both in the cosmos and outside of it, and demons because we act reasonably alive while doing so, which the ghosts don't. Entertainers and soldiers are all demon doublegangers, whichever side they're on, though they say the snake places are simply ghastly. Zombies are dead people whose lifelines lie in the so-called past. What were you doing in St. Petersburg before the ambush? I asked Eric. That is, if you can talk about it.
Why not? We were kidnapping the infant Einstein back from the snakes in 1883. Yes, the snakes got him, Liebchen, only a few sleeps back, endangering the West's whole victory over Russia.
Which gave your dear little Hitler the world on a platter for 50 years, and got me loved to death by your sterling troops in the liberation of Chicago.
But which leads to the ultimate victory of the spiders and the West over the snakes and communism, Liebchen. Remember that. Anyway, our counter-snatch didn't work. The snakes had guards posted. Most unusual, and we weren't warned. The whole thing was a great mess. No wonder Bruce lost his head. Not that it excuses him.
The new boy? I asked. Sid hadn't got to him, and he was still standing with hooded eyes where Eric had left him, a dark pillar of shame and rage.
Yeah, a lieutenant from World War I, an Englishman.
I gathered that, I told Eric. Is he really effeminate?
Weibischer? He smiled. I had to call him something when he said I was a coward. He'll make a fine soldier, only needs a little more shaping.
You men are so original when you spat. I lowered my voice. But you shouldn't have gone on and called him a snake, Eric mine.
Schlange.
The smile got crooked.
Who knows about any of us? As St. Petersburg showed me, the snake spies are getting cleverer than ours.
The blue eyes didn't look sweet now.
Are you, Liebchen, really nothing more than a good loyal spider?
Eric!
All right, I went too far. With Bruce and with you too. We're all hacked these days, riding with one leg over the breaking edge.
Maud and Beau were supporting the Roman to a couch, Maud taking most of his weight, with Sid still supervising and the new boy still sulking by himself. The new girl should have been with him, of course, but I couldn't see her anywhere, and I decided she was probably having a nervous breakdown in the refresher, the little jerk. The Roman looks pretty bad, Eric, I said.
Ah, Mark's tough. Got virtue, as his people say. And our little starship girl will bring him back to life, if anybody can. And if...
You call this living, I filled in dutifully. He was right. Maud had 50-odd years of psychomedical experience, 23rd century at that. It should have been Doc's job, but that was 50 drunks back.
Maud and Mark. That will be an interesting experiment, Eric said, reminiscent of Goering's with the frozen men and the naked gypsy girls.
You are a filthy Nazi. She'll be using electrophoresis and deep suggestion if I know anything.
How will you be able to know anything, Liebchen, if she switches on the couch curtains, as I perceive she is preparing to do?
Filthy Nazi, I said and meant.
Precisely.
He clicked his heels and bowed a millimeter.
Erich Friedrich von Hohenwald, Oberleutnant, in the army of the Third Reich, fell at Narvik, where he was recruited by the spiders. Lifeline lengthened by a big change after his first death, and at latest report, Commandant of Toronto, where he maintains extensive baby farms to provide himself with breakfast meat, if you believe the handbills of the voyageurs underground. At your service.
Oh, Eric, it's all so lousy, I said, touching his hand, reminded that he was one of the unfortunates resurrected from a point in their lifelines well before their deaths. In his case, because the date of his death had been shifted forward by a big change after his resurrection. And as every demon finds out, if he can't imagine it beforehand, it is pure hell to remember your future, and the shorter the time between your resurrection and your death back in the cosmos, the better. Mine, bless Babedin, was only an action-packed 10 minutes on North Clark Street. Eric put his other hand lightly over mine.
Fortunes of the change war, Liebchen. At least I'm a soldier, and sometimes assigned to future operations. So why we should have this monomania about our future personalities back there, I don't know. Mine is a stupid oberst, thin as paper, and frightfully indignant as the voyageurs. but it helps me a little if I see him in perspective, and at least I get back to the cosmos pretty regularly, Gott sei Dank. So I'm better off than you entertainers."
I didn't say aloud that a changing cosmos is worse than none, but I found myself sending a prayer to the bonny dew for my father's repose, that the change winds would blow lightly across the lifeline of Anton A. Forzane, professor of physiology, born in Norway and buried in Chicago. Woodlawn Cemetery is a nice gray spot. "That's all right, Eric," I said. "We entertainers got mittens too." He scowled around at me suspiciously, as if he were wondering whether I had all my buttons on. "Mittens?" he said. "What do you mean? I am not wearing any. Are you trying to say something about Bruce's gloves, which incidentally seemed to annoy him for some reason? No, seriously, Greta, why do you entertainers need mittens?" "Because we get cold feet sometimes. At least I do. Got mittens, as I say." A sickly light dawned in his Prussian puss. He muttered, "Gott mittens, Gott mit uns, God with us," and roared softly, "Greta, I don't know how I put up with you, the way you murder a great language for cheap laughs." "You've got to take me as I am," I told him, "mittens and all, thank the bonny dew," and hastily explained, "That's French. Le bon Dieu, the good God, don't hit me. I'm not going to tell you any more of my secrets." He laughed feebly, like he was dying. "Cheer up," I said. "I won't be here forever, and there are worse places than the place." He nodded grudgingly, looking around. "You know what, Greta? If you'll promise not to make some dreadful joke out of it. On operations, I pretend I'll soon be going backstage to court the world-famous ballerina, Greta Forzane." He was right about the backstage part. The place is a regular theater in the round, with the void for an audience. The void's gray hardly disturbed by the screens masking surgery, refresher and stores. Between the last two are the bar and kitchen and Beau's piano. Between surgery and the sector where the door usually appears are the shelves and taborets of the art gallery. The control divan is stage center. Spaced around at a fair distance are 6 big low couches, one with its curtains now shooting up into the gray, and a few small tables. It is like a ballet set, and the crazy costumes and characters that turn up don't ruin the illusion. By no means. Diaghilev would have hired most of them for the Ballet Russe on first sight without even asking them whether they could keep time to music. End of chapter 1.